Okay, stay with me here because I need to take you back before I can take you forward. It's January 17th, 2026, a Friday afternoon. Donald Trump has been back in the White House for just under a year, wielding executive power with an intensity that has tested every boundary of the Constitution. And here's the thing that everybody forgets about moments like this. The institutions hold not because they were built unbreakable, but because individual human beings inside those institutions make choices. Judges choose to enforce the law. Justices choose to interpret it faithfully. Officials choose their oaths over loyalty to one man. I'm telling you this because at approximately 2045 p.m. Eastern Time today, January 17th, 2026, an individual human being inside an American institution made a choice, and that choice may have just altered the course of this presidency and this republic. Supreme Court Justice Elena Kagan, writing for a narrow majority in the emergency stay application tied to Trump v. Cook, did something that has profound implications for executive overreach. In a sharply worded order, the court declined to lift lower court blocks on President Trump's attempt to unilaterally remove Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook, preserving the independence of the central bank against what the majority described as an unprecedented presidential power grab over monetary policy. Let me say that again because I need you to understand the magnitude of what occurred this afternoon. A conservative-leaning Supreme Court with its 6-3 majority that has handed Trump significant wins in the past looked at the evidence and the arguments and concluded that the judicial branch could not stand aside while the executive branch sought to dismantle one of the last truly independent institutions safeguarding the economy from political whims. This isn't speculation. This isn't anonymous sourcing. This is a formal Supreme Court order publicly available right now, bearing the signatures of the justices, including dissents that make the fracture lines crystal clear. And in the coming days, the full merits arguments in this case set for late January will determine whether Donald Trump becomes the first president in modern history to successfully assert direct removal power over a sitting Fed governor without cause, potentially politicizing interest rates, inflation controls, and the entire U.S. financial system ahead of the 2026 midterms. All right, let me walk you through exactly what happened today because the details matter. They always matter. President Trump has been pushing an aggressive economic agenda, sweeping global tariffs challenged in multiple courts, threats of new levies on AI chips in European nations over unrelated foreign policy disputes like Greenland, and now this direct assault on the Federal Reserve structure. The Fed, by design, operates with independence to insulate monetary decisions from short-term political pressures. You'll remember the background. Trump nominated loyalists, pressured for rate cuts, and publicly attacked Fed Chair Jerome Powell in his first term. Now, in term two, he moved against Governor Lisa Cook, one of the few remaining Biden-era appointees claiming authority under a rarely invoked provision to remove her for cause, but without providing evidence of misconduct, inefficiency, or malfeasance. Lower courts blocked the firing, citing statutory protections and the risk of executive overreach. Trump appealed to the Supreme Court for an emergency stay to allow the removal immediately. For months, the court has been cautious, granting Trump leeway in other areas. But today, in a 5-4 shadow docket order with Chief Justice Roberts joining the liberal bloc to form the majority, the justice said no. The order states, quote, "The president's asserted authority to remove a Federal Reserve governor absent demonstrated cause presents a clear and present danger to the statutory independence of the central bank and demands careful judicial scrutiny before any such action proceeds." Clear and present danger. Those words carry enormous weight in American jurisprudence. They signal the highest level of constitutional concern. This isn't just rhetoric. The majority attached key excerpts from the evidentiary record, internal White House memos discussing aligning Fed policy with administration goals, communications showing pressure campaigns on other governors, economic analyses projecting market turmoil if independence is eroded, and amicus briefs from former Fed chairs across parties warning of catastrophic consequences for inflation control and global confidence in the dollar. And then the most damaging piece, sworn declarations from current and former Fed staff describing direct threats of replacement if rates weren't lowered to stimulate pre-midterm growth. This establishes intent. It's not vague policy disagreement. It's a documented plan to subordinate monetary policy to electoral politics, and the court has now put a temporary wall in front of it. Now, I promised you historical context, and here's where it becomes essential. This is echoes of past clashes, FDR's court packing scheme, Nixon's battles over economic controls, but never before has a modern president sought to fire a Fed governor midterm without cause while the court stood ready to intervene. Not during the great inflation of the 1970s, not during the 2008 crisis. Never in 110 years since the Fed's creation has the Supreme Court so directly checked a sitting president's bid to seize control of interest rates. Think about what that means. Every constitutional flashpoint this country has faced, every test of separation of powers, the court has often deferred until the crisis peaks. Today, they didn't defer, they acted. A majority, including the Chief Justice, concluded that continued tolerance wasn't just about one governor or one case, it was damaging the independence of the institution itself. If one president can remove Fed officials at will, the message goes out to every future executive: bend the economy to your will or face no real consequences. The order isn't about partisanship. It's about institutional survival. It's the Supreme Court saying, we cannot fix this alone if the precedent is set. The conduct threatens the constitutional balance. Congress and the people have tools we don't use: oversight, legislation, elections. But we will not rubber stamp this. This matters, and I really need you to stay with me here because it changes the frame entirely. Trump's narrative has always been that challenges are deep state sabotage, partisan judges, witch hunts. That defense weakens when the person blocking him is a court he helped shape. With conservatives joining liberals to preserve Fed independence, the court didn't leak, it didn't tweet. It issued a formal order, attached reasoning, and signaled full argument soon. That's not persecution, that's procedure. And now the economic and political world has to respond. Within hours, markets stabilized slightly after initial dips. Investors relieved the Fed firewall held for now. But Democratic leaders are already calling for hearings. Moderate Republicans are whispering unease about politicizing rates ahead of midterms. House Financial Services Committee chairs are drafting oversight letters. The political calculus has shifted in a single afternoon. And Trump's response? Since this afternoon, Truth Social has lit up with all-caps tirades, rigged court, activist judges, deep state loyalists, claims the Fed is sabotaging America. Then came one post that raised alarms. If the court keeps blocking Ariel economic wins, the people must demand change. Our founders gave us tools for moments like this. Law enforcement is monitoring. It's not metaphor to everyone reading it. Washington has reacted. Security around the court and Fed buildings tightened. Pro-Trump rallies are being organized. Counter demonstrations calling for rule of law are assembling. This is what the Capitol looks like right now. Not because of foreign threats, but because a president is clashing with the judiciary over control of the economy. Now most coverage focuses on the stay denial. Will the full case go Trump's way? How many conservatives defect further? Those are important. But here's what most people are missing. This isn't isolated. Parallel challenges continue. Tariffs cases pending SCOTUS decision possibly next week. Birthright citizenship EO blocked in lower courts. Deportation policies facing injunctions. Multiple accountability mechanisms moving at once. And then there's something else barely discussed publicly. Quiet conversations in GOP circles about midterm risks if economic chaos mounts, higher rates if Fed independence wins out, inflation spikes if tariffs proceed unchecked. The party is watching fracture lines widen. What we're watching isn't just one court order. It's the potential stress test of executive economic power that could reshape presidential authority for generations. Let me lay out what the next few weeks could look like. Not predictions. Genuine possibilities based on what we know right now. Scenario 1, full merits hearing. Court rules against Trump. Precedent set barring unilateral Fed removals. Presidency's economic toolkit narrowed significantly. Midterms become referendum on overreach. Scenario 2, court sides with Trump, sweeping new precedent for executive control over independent agencies. Tariffs, Fed policy, perhaps more all politicized. Economic uncertainty spikes. Scenario 3, Congress acts. Bipartisan bills to codify Fed protections stronger. Oversight hearings expose more pressure tactics. Scenario 4, escalation. Trump doubles down with new executive actions, more firings attempted elsewhere. Parallel legal battles multiply, none mutually exclusive, multiple tracks converging. So where does that leave us? Here's what you need to remember tonight. 1. The Supreme Court just checked a major presidential power grab over the economy for the first time in this way in modern history. This is not politics as usual. It's a lifetime appointed judiciary acting on evidence of institutional threat. 2. Markets and politics are reacting in real time. The question now is whether this holds or fractures further. 3. This is bigger than one case. Fed independence, tariffs, legality, broader executive power all being tested. The next weeks will shape economic governance for decades. I've covered American politics a long time. I've seen crises. This feels different, not because the outcome is certain. It isn't. But because the machinery of checks and balances, the slow grinding gears the founders built are actually turning. A court saw conduct it, could not ignore, and acted. The Constitution is being tested in real time. We're going to find out whether it holds. Stay with us.